Are you looking to buy or sell a UK business via an asset sale? Does that business have any employees? If so, TUPE will be a key consideration. I'm Malcolm Zoppi, an English qualified solicitor, and in this video, we'll discuss TUPE in the context of M&As. We'll go over three main things. First, what is TUPE? Second, what are the key responsibilities of the buyer under TUPE? And lastly, what are the key responsibilities of the seller? Fantastic, let's get started. So chapter 1 is, what is TUPE? Well, TUPE is short for the Transfer of Undertakings, Protection of Employment Regulations. And it's a set of rules that, in short, protect employees when there is either a business transfer or a change of service provision. In this video, and since I specialize in M&As, we will focus on the business transfer aspect. So in short, under TUPE, when there is a sale of a business transfer, the relevant employees are transferred from the seller's entity to the buyer's entity under their existing terms and conditions of employment. So that means that the only thing that really changes, typically, is who is the employer. But the employees remain entitled to the same terms and conditions as with the previous employer, the seller. Fantastic. Let's move on to chapter 2. What are the key responsibilities of the buyer? The three main ones that I can think of. Number 1 is to conduct due diligence. So as always, the buyer in a business acquisition is responsible for conducting their own due diligence. And in this context, the buyer needs to understand the kind of workforce that they will be inheriting. One of the main things that I'll be wanting to know if I was a buyer is how many employees am I taking on, what are their salaries, and what kind of benefits will I need to provide to those employees. The second main thing that the buyer needs to do is notify the seller of any key changes or measures that they will be putting in place that might affect the transferring employees. That's because the seller, before completion occurs, needs to communicate with the employees any changes that might affect them, and therefore they need to know of these from the buyer. The type of things that a buyer would need to communicate to a seller that might affect the relevant employees include, for example, relocations and reorganizations within the company. And the last main responsibility of the buyer under TUPE is to adopt those employees, to inherit them. So the taking on of employees under TUPE isn't optional for a buyer. If they want to proceed with the acquisition and TUPE applies to the affected employees, then those affected and transferred employees must transfer to the buyer. Fantastic. But before we discuss the seller's key responsibilities, feel free to send me an email if looking for free legal advice. With our legal advice calls, there are no charges, no obligations, and no nonsense. Email me now at info@zoppi.co.uk. Fantastic. So what are the seller's key responsibilities? Number 1 is to identify the affected employees. There are really two main categories of affected employees. Number 1, employees that will be transferred from the seller to the buyer. And number 2, any remaining employees that will stay with the seller but are nonetheless affected by the business transfer. Second, the seller will need to communicate to the affected employees a few key details. These communications can either go to the employees directly if the transaction, the business of the seller is small enough, or it might need to go to the employees' representatives. But some of the things that need to be included in those communications are, number 1, informing the relevant employees of the fact that there is going to be a business transfer and the proposed date or estimated date of when that will complete. Second, the details of the buyer, so who is the buyer. And lastly, any changes that might affect those employees. Fantastic. And the third main responsibility of the seller is to notify the buyer at least 28 days before completion occurs of a few key details regarding the transferring employees, including, for example, who they are, the terms and conditions of employment, any disciplinary and grievance records regarding those employees, and any claims and liabilities, again, relating to those employees. If you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. If you're interested, as for example, the seller of a business, and finding out about the kind of taxes that you might need to pay when you come to sell your business, make sure to watch this video right here that talks about exactly that.